Welcome to One Breath Rising's second Sunday series. Today, we are so glad to have read for us today, Randall Horton, who is a writer, a poet, an artist, and professor of English at the University of New Haven. He is currently the only person in the United States with 7 felony convictions and academic tenure. Randall is the recipient of the 2022 Creative Capital Award, the American Book Award for Oral Literature, the Gwendolyn Brooks Poetry Award, and the Bea Gonzalez Poetry Award. He is also a National Endowment of the Arts Fellow in Literature. He is a GLCA New Writers Award for Creative Nonfiction for his book, Hook, a Memoir, a poet in residence at the Civil Rights Corps, and a Right to Return Fellow, from whom he received a fellowship. He has several poetry collections, and he is currently on the advisory board of PEN America's PEN Prison Writing Program. He is also co-founder of the Social Justice Band. Really tired today, people. Okay. Radical Reversal, and a member of the band Heroes Are Gang Leaders, a group whose unique blends of blues, jazz, funk, hip hop, go-go, R&B, soul, classical music, poetry, dramaturgy, and prose continues the legacy of Amiri Baraka. So I want to welcome to One Breath Rising, Randall Horton. Take it away, Randall.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to One Breath. I think we got it together after one mishap, scheduling wise. So I appreciate you bending with me, and it's definitely an honor and to read. You know, especially when people that I've been knowing for a while, or that I started out with, in this whole thing, you know, and I think that's a beautiful thing. So thank you, EJ, for that. I still remember that baseball poem, man. Just for you, just so you know. So I'm just trying to figure out what I was going to read today, and I think a little something old, a little something more new, something I don't really get a chance to read that much today. So let's start here. I'm gonna read from Pitch Dark Anarchy. Dear reader, before the cataclysmic end of the world whittles down to zero, before grounding out idiot noise pushes in all motion skin color, before that which cannot be defined, our terribleness calibrated on a triple beam scale, or call it residue running to the border. Subjective, but it is about subjects underneath, always underneath, and language after the betrayal, or a thing of intrigue and illusion caught in a sound draft, the recoil before the final echo dimming the sun, displayed for the displaced, more clearly to see at the end of the world. Stirring inside your head. Secretly, there is a transmitted Zoom taking place, a high-tech broadcast, little voices up in the unvirgin ear, a world murmur, invisible dribbles, and so you have become android, almost mechanical. A small autopilot human, perhaps love too is automatic. But you can't hear the negation you have become, persona non grata, a joke with no punchline, a muted 5-string quartet, a DJ spinning vinyl in the same direction, a monotone drone. Quail to the quiet, step inside zero to hear what you can't decipher. Information based on RAM. The megahertz alert flashing secrets, security codes dialing you stay it. A pool of nothing, a nothing pool, and false faces, too much seen, which hides and keeps from us the intellectual state of America. The statement clear, so clear no one notices what the living do. No one understands others' complete blindness, glaucoma in the brain, sending an SOS out there, over and out there. Come in, come on in. Here we go, here we go, here we go. Yep. All right. Reified melody in the architecture. The sky will unfold in the morning. One sparrow zigzag interrupts light. Muting its infant song, the city will awaken to car engines, diesel brakes, machinery filling the air. A triangle of clatter igniting an electric. Rows of brownstones often carry vibrations, but the vibrations often refute, or maybe narration is a lie. And perhaps wind too doesn't hum singing like a lark. Peonies never grew here. Angelo was skipped to school with open mouth to grasp hope, but broken glass will shatter into urine. The rank odor spoiling utopias lost in today's good gospel. Camellias and Roddies have drooped out of sight. Wino Joe remains invisible underneath the crumbling front steps of a vacant house. The sky will swirl into infinite sheets of cerulean, time erased in the breeze. No one sees Joe nursing a singular flower. Wild Irish rose, red wine, trickles down his throat where flutes sing. A frail shadow puppet, railing against dawn. Homeless Harry stands atop the same crumbling steps, contemplating differences between dawn and sunset. His eyes time a riddle. Little Marie awakens beneath pine slats, freshly sanded floors, exposed brick. Bevel glass spreads her face sienna, receding from a dream. She will not know change slowly blotting out the forgotten, hanging to a counterfeit rainbow. Struggle stays hidden in daytime traffic. Stories unrecognizable, time moving, and etc., etc., etc. Steal away and exercise in getting ghosts. Subway trains careen down dark tunnels, voltage wire splits Earth's clay, sparkling sunshine hibernates on the Gothic bridge. Arches, not columns, but imagination's postscript under the city's skyline. Peeping behind each native eye, collateral damage. Iron coffles deposited in memory, palatial pristine arteries beget narcotic, beget death, the duality of life concealed. Out in the open, flies circling in a random bullet hole, dead body. An arm appeared from nowhere, straight bull's eye imprinted a visual of how life ends us. Journey on earth, and we ran fast with our feet touching ground, almost skywalking. Children on the playground, loud noises. We blinked twice to see more clearly the epicenter. We stole away like spirituals in need of freedom, foundation flinching at sound at the ready. When winter is a transitional state. And winter is a metaphor for sex working late at night. From iron gate to ice-covered sidewalk, it has been a difficult winter, I reflect. Watching from third floor window bay windows into unforgiving nighttime, you stroll, wrestle Tom and Dick for $1 bill. I would give the world to you. Don't you believe? Love is never adequate, baby. This city got us. Daily struggling to survive the madness at the edge of a crumbling cliff, I stand ready. And if you gave it all up now, I would leap or say, baby girl, can I be your good thing, man? For more than 10 minutes, I want to linger patiently in the FM of your snow white static, an emergency broadcast escorting you away. If it means goodbye, please don't. My red boot walker of intrigue, go. Understanding I sip this bourbon and lament. The body you hustle for, I long for myself always. Let's see, one more, a couple more of these. Okay. Two more from me. Decision time for the would-be 12-stepper. Directly above one-stop liquor store meetings occur every hour on the hour. Across the street, leaned against a church, a man contemplates which cathedral, upstairs or down, liquor or step one. Tonight, he is powerless, and a scotch offers sanctuary between sane and insane. You have to step over used needles full of residual blood, perhaps viral. In the room upstairs, everybody wants serenity, but secretly a dime bag and a 40. Directly above one-stop liquor store, bodies with track marks and ill livers and monikers of forgiveness to heal what the man across the street leaned up against the church wrestles with. Ironic to say the least. Summer stretches long misery, winter folded into the city, tranquil air, and the moan of traffic. He repeats to himself, I am. And let me end with this one. I think for all you, no, actually two more. So for all you Toni Morrison aficionados, I think you're going to get this one. It's called The Power of a Literary Novel. And then we'll end with my man, Lil Jimmy. Anyway, The Power of a Literary Novel. And I'll read a little bit from 289-128. In the abandoned clapboard on the second floor, on top of an antique curio, a book spine open to the scene and beloved where self-laud she done killed her baby. Notwithstanding, the book needs to begin again the narrative. Nobody wakes up or sleeps here. Like what changed the course of a family evicted, thrown onto sidewalk pavement, not permitted to catch Western civilization's callous spirit. A girl's throat displays a purple necklace of perforated skin. All alone, upright, she sits in the abandoned building on the second floor. Her lips still want to know why. In the closet, a body decays simultaneously with summer. She dead too, like Seth. Her mother could not watch a tragic slave, so she slit her voice. The prescription unattainable, the pain intense. An orange-red robin outside on a tree branch, looking through the windowsill, will never know, dearly beloved, of the dead baby rotting silently. All right, yeah. Well to the center, after William H. Johnson's Going to Church circa 1940. Not even 2 hours out the juke joint, bourbon breath, little Jimmy up from the choir box row singing Precious Lord. Still he reeked the first note. Sister Maybell cried, a fan swung side to side, the wail and moan mirroring the preacher's scream. Reproduced blue mythographies of sweat. But creation's arms extended back up further through little Jimmy's rendition. Of going to church, he migrated momentarily. Southwestward, the pines faced the blue wood house. Yards from an ox cart rolling down clay dirt road to the congregation. Simply naive Jimmy solo, a call few could hear, even when he shouted. So I'm gonna read a couple from my latest, my last book, 289128. And this one, so I read you from the book from before that was Pitch Dark and Narca, just for context, from Northwestern. My Northwestern made their share. There we go. And I'm going to read a couple poems from 289128. And for those of you who don't know, this was my number when I was incarcerated. And so I've decided to, name it that, to take back that power, right? So I necessarily don't believe in what they call the language of incarceration, but sometimes you have to do what you got to do. 289128, property of the state animals. And it begins with the epigraph by Raji Fentress, August Correctional Center. The only thing less than a nigga is a prisoner. A heat wave envelops the mid-Atlantic, abnormal like the notion of prison. Outside, an unrelenting centigrade oven bakes the male housing unit. Cells are jam-packed with the guilty who played out, though very innocent. 7 sounded better than 25 straight for more than a few consecutive days. There's a spell cast over the complex. A 5-inch fan oscillates the aroma of piss from the toilet bowl in this jungle-like, where grown men and young boys blend, each inmate's sadness compounded. No shade, nowhere to hide, and running would get that ass shot at the razor fence dangling in blood, so you sit, suffer, while asking, is this how the story ends? 289128, property of the state. Don't trust the process. Wait and waiting and wait and wait and waiting and wait. Naked, stand before God, you are now invisible, will not materialize through iron or the ignorant. Nothing changes, nothing. Intake, property, medical, seize a piece of humanity, each destination a moral point converging toward a cell, hid in the open by a lie no one actually believes unless given a grand tour via hands cuffed to unbreakable plastic, behind the back pulled tight, no money, no phone call, no bail. Product for expenditure or process as prosecution for the good of the people. Dante and Donkin said the most abused of an unrighteous order, wrote the Soledad brother. Good people do not reside here. Screaming in the dark ocean, the body is not constitutional, becomes more effective than yelling, this setup ain't right. 289128, property of the state. Sorry, this not that poem. Raised block flower and plant bed, peonies, gardenias, poinsettias, plus a yellow orb slow rising over an endless golden skate. Darting through uncluttered space, cardinals, thrashes, sparrows, blue air fragrant with lavender, washing brain matter into virtue. If only I could pastel alphabets onto a canvas of thistledown, yes, deceit comes to mind. A lie, a traitor, turncoat, recreant, backstabber. Here I would be gut shanked a million times. This is not that poem, nor am I that poet to hold your hand. Or erase knothole screams, blood on the cement floor, or suicide is another form of escape. No. Yes, I do promise the evil, ugly humans inflict on each other to themselves, how time is malice is death, inflaming pupils with spite, indistinguishable if set free. Forgive state poet 289128 for not scribbling illusions of trickery, as if timeless hell could be captured by stanzas, alliteration, or slack rhyme. (289-128) property of the state, rhetorical perhaps. We do not experience movement, the cell is setting a chronic theme. We do not experience, only exist. In the frame behind the cell, we stand each place and step with the next still standing. We do not move until told. This instant, we only have moments, mementos relived in slow motion, a cinematic dream. I see you, the good, while we evildoers rot like pomegranate, once sweet, fresh, and vibrant. Rehabilitation is love letters to a ghost. Discourse in the day room, we look at the world on TV to see our false selves inside a constructed frame until told we enter as if we never left. 289-128. Or this malice thing never to be confused with justice. Nothing symbolic, okay? Dark is dark, cage is cage, hunted and hunter are both in the literal. Make belief in what is do not exist. Nothing cryptic here, okay? Rape is rape, pray must pray, no minute in the future safe from quiet insertions of a shank and masking tape, okay? Nothing here infinite. Only time is constant to the merciful and merciless. There are no allegories to hide behind. He slit his wrist, meaning he slit his fucking wrist, okay? There's a cell with one window just before day. Dawn's early demise magnifies a dull metal toilet, the cool water cooled in 2 canned sodas. Each wall a slab of soft gray cinder block. No posters featuring eroticized women with an exclusive in black teal, okay? The wall that slits the light does not reveal nothing new, ever. The expose, the changing same, always a holding. One window offers a gateway. My face pressed against the window in time rules this empire, okay? The mind held hostage by time, mind and body conjoined twins. The other wall holds a frame. The frame holds a metal door to contain utter disbelief of the visible. Walls are gray, not like summer, but darker. Yes, there is darkness, okay? Okay? Couple of more. I'll read a little bit from the last section. 289-128 poet in New York. Remember, do not turn from the difficult thesis. Think back to the slim praying man in cell 15 with needles stuck in vein. Religion or dope can stop time. Remember 72 in the unit built for 30, that never-ending revolving door, or the overcrowded choir singing, I am the wretched of the earth. Type on the Smith Corona at night, how cell 23 demanded rabble art. What about the couple in cell 22, lifeless, who found love doing a bid? Father and son as cellies on the top tier, no generation would be left behind. Too many bodies lingering in limbo, the worn out illusion of truth see. Memorialized faces you will forget. Victim turned perpetrator in cell 6, sold at age 8 for a bag of meth. Nothing is black and white. 289-128. One minute. Still invisible too. After the invisible man statue on the upper side, west side, for the fallen ones and those still to fall. A stone's hurled from the Henry Hudson Riverside converges into 150th Street foundationing a bronze cutout man. And this is the Ralph Ellison statue, in case you didn't catch it, right? A stone's hurled from the Henry Hudson Riverside converges into 150th Street of foundationing a bronze cutout man, his metal insides hollow, erased mid-stride in a hurried stroll, as if running from the police is a trope cyclic within time's continuum. High above ground level stereotypes, exhibit A in media res defines itself. Tonight moons illuminates the dark, docile Hudson. Across the George Washington Bridge, car beams stab through late traffic. And onto a park bench, I, 289-128, sit while observing this troubled man, more me, a mimetic confused clone of trauma, temporal space history, caught in color construction, if literature reflects human existence, Ellison nailed the novel, as in people refuse to see the who of what I am since before post-racial. I am labeled armed, dangerous, known to pack, dark and hyphenated, the typecast memorialized in perpetual fear. Time never ticks. The clock forever strikes midnight and high noon together. Tonight, I must confess skin color is a race that never stops running. Couple of more, then we get out of here. Let's see where I want to go. You know what? I'm gonna read this because I don't read it that much. What the hell? So 289-128, Ars Poetica 3, Stay Woke. Faking the blues for a hand clap. Feel good moment for the sake of self, glowing with laziness. Shortcut to the long game. A social media internet sensation, as in liking, not never wanting to be a color until award season roll round. Contrived, unreal, an imaginary perpetual love for the Afro pick, stealing away only to be co-opted as the lone kid with all the toys nobody want to play with. A lie presented as truth, as American real, edited, monochromatic, or filtered for fashionable desire, nurtured within the stomach of the beast's most fear, They, or specifically, the associated do walk among us, living in unstate by the state, programmed as intelligentsia elite. All right, one more, and then we're gonna get up out of here. I think 85, yeah. No, 83. And it's part of a longer poem, Subway Chronicles, but it's the 10th one. But it's the protagonist. 289128 poet in New York, as in 289128, the protagonist. Exiting darkness begins the process by which, of course, I dissolves, dim, opaque, and a train whistling by the last window starboard. Against plate glass, bubble the cheek, but then oblique, as in press ever so silly, dumb the night. Vibrant and uptown folk trapped in a maze of boundaries and books. The soul of Black folk, or so thinks our protagonist, no matter totally recuses itself from the living. It begins dream as manifest destiny. There's departure and arrival, trapped in an impossible construct. Say the construct walks upright in search of freedom everywhere. A historical fallacy willing the body. Say skin construction is Black, deepening the scene's projection. Let's call 289128 human. All right. We'll stop there. I don't want to bore you out too much.
I don't think you were boring anybody. Thank you very much. You are not boring at all, dear. Let me tell you.
Well, you know, pressure on now. I got Jacqueline here. I got Cheryl. She got you. Come on, man.
First, I want to thank you for reading for us this afternoon. This has been such a treat. And you know, we do a Q&A after each person reads, and there are so many lines that you read from the poetry that just like jumped right out. It's such a rawness to it. Mm-hmm. It's very urban, very raw, but it has a lot of light in it.
Yeah,
you don't feel weighted down by it. You know there's a seriousness to it, but you're not weighted down by it.
Right.
And the one line that you read that just to me applied to this whole reading was, "I'm not that poet that holds your hand." And you definitely are not that poet.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think you kind of hit a lot of things on the head. Also, you got to think about, you know, for me, I'm always thinking of Brown Street in Bronzeville, especially when I'm looking at urban settings and thinking about Gwendolyn Brooks and like what she was able to do. That's been always my blueprint when looking at the urban voice. And I'm always fascinated with landscape and architecture and what the city as a protagonist itself. Like, how does the city, you know, dictate how you move and do your thing? You know what I mean? I know people can do that, but the city has its own unique way of doing that. And I think, you know, it tells us these stories through the transformation of architecture and location and voices and dialect and just little, I like to people watch, you know, I mean, for me, you know, like when I get on the subway, I'm people watching all day. And just, you know, just looking at what the world gives. But so, yeah, it's definitely, you know, sort of that. And for me, I'm always interested in everything in the periphery, everything around me. And how do I bring that alive so that I can live within the poem too? Kind of.
Yeah, I mean, it's just beautiful. The way you build the scenes, you know. And then you also wrote something that was very American, very America. That line that you said, skin color is a race that never stops running.
Right. It never stops.
That transcends urban, pastoral,
right.
You know, the suburbs. You know,
and I'm interested in that construction
surpasses it.
And how does language break down those barriers too, you know?
Right.
How does it address and break down those barriers by the sheer defiance of refusing to fit in like one box, you know, even though people gonna put things in a box and you have to unbox it again and get into another box. But, you know, so I think it's the process of unboxing, maybe more so than anything, you know?
Right. I love your titles. The one where you steal away.
Yeah.
That one, for me, that was hearing you read that was a very personal experience because I actually lost a childhood friend to that. To that being caught in the middle of gunfire. And
right, yeah.
And you know, he didn't have really good eyesight. His friend went one way, he went the other, and he got killed.
Yeah, well, you got to realize before, you know, I came to this side, that was the world in which I participated in a lot. And so, I mean, you know, I'm just sort of like, it took me a while to sort of like tell those stories a little bit, but I'm definitely, you know, be creating from memory, from, you know, experiences, the collective experiences, personal experiences, all of it. You know, and so it can't help but be that, you know, if I'm caught up in that situation, that's going to come out. But then how do you tell that story in a way to sort of break the stereotype of how that should be told too? So there's that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And that's another good thing about your writing. It's not, there is no stereotype in it. You get the humanity of it, right, regardless of what side of the fence you're on.
And I think I've always been aware, like from the beginning jump, like how people are going to try to put me in a box, right? Just from being a prison poet and being from that, because I do a lot with that. And so I'm just supposed to naturally always do that or do that, you know, and so I'm always thinking about how do I not do that? Maybe, I mean, in actuality, you know, this was like my fourth book, man. I didn't really write about it except for like one chapter in my third book, second book. That was it. And, you know, and so for me, I'm always aware of like, and then I decided to write about it on my own terms. I didn't want to write about it because, oh, you should write about that because that's what you're doing. And that's the way that should be. I didn't feel like that's the way I should do. So, you know, my first book was like a persona, man, like in, like, you know, like 1912 or something, my family in Alabama. Nope. But they went to jail too, though. But, you know, it wasn't really I wasn't thinking of, you know, I didn't want to be, I'm always interested in how do you continue to sort of grow from one project to the next, whatever that means. So like, I'm thinking about those things from project to project, you know, what's different, and how do I find the surprises from one project to the next, you know? And I think that's something probably all writers wrestle with to a T. You know, I'm not alone in that, you know.
No.
It's sort of my way of looking at it and being aware of it more so than anything. Because I can say I'm not going to write about anything, and I look back and I say, damn, I've been writing about that all the time. You know what I mean? So I stopped. I kind of stopped saying that because I was like, man, you still write. It's just it's just some other, but it's there. And so I think the bigger thing is just to be aware of aesthetically where you're going and what you're trying to do with your work. Because some, you know, that they were like, I'm not going to write about this no more. And damn, you're right. It comes up because these are the things that are important. And one, you know, they just manifest themselves different. But that's cool. You know.
Well, you know what the saying is, you're going to write about it until you get it all out. And some people never get it all out. So many boxes to it.
I know, because I ain't say I wasn't gonna write no more. I ain't writing no more about prison. I'm done. You know, even with that little habit. And then all of a sudden, I get this project and I started just writing about this and said, oh, I got some stuff, I got some stuff to talk about. So, because I hadn't really, gotten it all out. Like
so did you actually start writing poetry while you were in prison, or was it something that you did?
No, for real. I mean, I wasn't there was nothing about me that said the poet. Like nothing. No, I didn't. I'm serious about that. I'm just was not in that. I didn't know what a poet was, man. I mean, I wasn't going to any poetry readings. I wasn't about anybody who read poetry. I mean, I had gone to college and, I read books a little bit, but I wasn't no literary cat per se at all. Let me just, not per se, not at all. I read what I had to read to pass a grade. And that was, you know what I mean? And I don't, in high school, I wasn't in no writing class. There wasn't no poetry. There was no poetry workshop. So none of those things were available to me. And it wasn't until I got incarcerated for the last time. I ended up going to a program in Montgomery County in Maryland before I was going upstate. It was called Jail Addiction Services. And I was trying to go in there because I could save some time off my sentence. But, I ended up taking the program serious, or ended up taking me serious. So we found our way to each other. And there was a writing component in it. And so I started writing. And the lady who ran the program, Pat Parker, she when I got my time, she called me in the office and she told me to make her a promise. And I was like, what's that? He said, promise me that you'll never stop writing. Okay, I could do that. I mean, no one had ever asked me that before. I'm like, because that was the whole thing where I would read my stuff to these guys, after we write all these questions, answering these tough questions about things that we have done to harm others and things that make us tick and all of these things. And so I'm reading my stuff and these guys looking at me after I get through reading, them like that. And I'm like, and so, if I can get their attention, there's something there somewhere, right? Because this is a rough crowd. They're not impressed by a whole lot of nothing at all. And so that was my barometer right there. Like, okay, I can, so, and they would, encourage me. And so so she called me in and she asked me to say, just keep writing. And I had never written anything other than that, but I liked it. And so when I went to DOC, I remembered I stayed in Baltimore, the orientation, they sent us the intake in Baltimore. I stayed there for like almost 2 weeks. And I was like locked down for the most part every day. And so I started working on a novel. And it was called Do You See What I See? Cheesy or whatever. But the more important part of it is the protagonist was this young girl named Jasmine. And for some reason, and I still don't know to this day, other than I just equated poetry with being smart, she had to be a poet. So she could report about all the shit that was going on in the neighborhood, right? And she was the one for reason. And so I had to learn how to write a poem. So I didn't know what a poem was. So I was writing these little sappy poems like, do you see what I see? But you got to also understand, man, I'm in conversation with Ethelbert Miller at this time, right? So I'm writing Ethelbert, right? I had just started writing him. And, and he sort of like encouraging me and just letting me find my way. He has all of those bad poems, by the way. Every last one. No, they ain't George Mason in the archive. They terrible. They terrible. And so I remember one time, this is after I had seen Patricia. I mean, this is after I saw Patricia. But anyway, I started writing, and then the little girl had to be a poet, and I started trying to write poems. And that's how I got interested. And then at that time, Ethelbert was just, we would look at them. He didn't say nothing. He just kept encouraging me, and things like that, which was fine. And so I was still like writing these little sappy poems, thinking I'm doing something. And so I go back to the place where I got my time, because I had to go back to court to get my sentence commuted to this two-year program in North Carolina. And so I'm back in the same unit, and one of the social workers brings in the tape of Patricia Smith. I mean, it's the Def Poetry Jam, right? And it's the Skinhead joint, right? And she starts off, they call me Skinhead, and I got my own beauty. It is knife scrawl and sword jagged letters. It is in the way my eyes snap away from the obvious. And I'm sitting up there like, what? Man, I promise you, I was like done. I was like, oh, this is what poetry does, right? So right after I saw that, we let it go lock in, right? So I stayed up all night with my little legal pad. I tell Patricia this, she knows the whole story, I promise you. She knows, because she knows the whole story. But anyway, I was like, how'd she do that? How'd she do that? And so I wrote Ethelbert, this is where it gets real crazy, right? So I wrote Ethelbert a letter. I said, Bert, they got this thing called a new poetry, man. Have you heard?
Oh dear.
No, I was green. I didn't know. That's what I'm trying to say. I didn't know anything. Nothing. I didn't know anything. He was so gracious, though. He didn't say nothing. I think about that today. He probably said, this boy green, he don't know nothing. So he let me find my way, though. And then when I got back, no, true story. And so when I got back through all of my travels and went back, me and Ethelbert hooked up, and we talked about a lot of that stuff. But it was and then when I got to Cave Canem, Patricia and Lucille Clifton was in my first workshop, remember? And so I was like, I got to tell, because I knew I was coming, so I had to tell Patricia then. But then Lucille was there, so I was like, oh, the first workshop, man, you can't get no better than that. But I told P, I was like, man, if it hadn't been for that moment, I don't know. I was done after that. I was like, how the hell she do that, man? I don't know, but I'm gonna figure it out. Anyway, sorry, I was a little, I didn't really go down the rabbit hole with that, but yeah.
No, that was an interesting story. What it shows me is that you didn't find poetry. Poetry was looking for you.
Yeah, no, it was.
And you are the protagonist. You were the protagonist that the universe was looking for to tell those stories. That's what that's telling me, because you're hooking up with poets of great stature within the African American community. You're hooking up with Pat Parker, Ethelbert, Patricia Smith, Lucille Clifton. And when that kind of thing happened, it's like the universe is saying, okay, I've now got you where I want you, shift.
Right.
and you are now where you are supposed to be.
No, it was because, yeah, it was the thing with me. It was like, okay, well, I was clear on the mission of what I was going to do. I didn't know how I was going to take care of myself. I didn't know what I was going to do. True story, man. After I went back and got my degree from in DC, and I was got into the MFA program at Chicago State, and I got accepted, and I didn't have any money, right? And so I had to borrow some money from my mama, man. And so and she, she did it, right? But then she was like, so what are you going to go study again? He's getting an MFA in poetry. What you going to do with that? I said, Mama, I don't know, but this is what I want to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, I tried everything else for money, like it didn't work out. And so I'm going to follow my heart. That just was it. I didn't know how it was going to work out, man, but I felt good when I was in that whole space with poetry.
And I know your mother passed was it last year?
Last year.
Yeah, last year. I know your mother passed. But she got to live long enough to see you.
No, yeah. As soon as I won the NEA, Mama, I said, Mama, I got your money. She was the first person. She was like, that's great when I get my money. True mama style, you know what I'm saying? Mama was mama. But yeah, but that meant the world, was to be able to do that, to go up, to sort of like that blind faith of like, I mean, the faith that she had, obviously, but then I just had this sort of blind faith that it was going to work out. It just, I tried everything else. And so this is the only thing that made me feel feel like I was part of something, I was worth something, I was doing something that was positive, and I could see it. You know what I mean? So for me, it was clear. And so, like you say, all of those things kind of leads you on those paths to sort of find your way where you're supposed to be.
Where you're supposed to be.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and
and yeah, like I said, eventually the universe does that flip for you, and there you are. You know, you're like right there. Yeah. I'm going to open it up if anybody on the line wants to ask a question. Cheryl, can you hear? No, we can't hear you.
Tell her to type it. Evidently, she can hear us, though.
Yeah, she can hear us. Put it in the chat, Cheryl. Just put your question in the chat.
I got something for him. Randall, that's a fine reading.
Hey, Jack, how you doing?
I'm good. I don't get to hear you often enough, so this was really special. What are you working on next? What you got next?
We were just talking about a little of that. I mean, project-wise, you know, I just wrote another memoir that came out last year, Dead Weight. So, you know, I mean, I'm kind of just writing, but working on music too, though. And, you know, there's that with the Radical Reversal project. And then with that project, you know, that's taken a lot of time as we, you know, put these recording studios inside the carceral state, right? And so that's something that we engaged in, and creating these experiences in Birmingham, Boston, and Minnesota at the facilities that we are in. And we're hoping to expand within the next year. We got a major expansion we're trying to do in like 15 facilities with 15 community partners. And yeah, so that thing has its own tentacle as well. And so, but we'll, you know, I'm kind of writing slow right now, and just trying to take it easy and just sort of see what comes. But, you know, we're doing another project with the music. We got a few shows coming up in prisons in California with Dwayne Betts, his organization Freedom Reads. So they put in these bookcases, man, these really expensive bookcases, and with 500 curated books. Each bookcase is like a work of art, man. It's like $50,000. And so he got a Mellon grant to do that. He's got it's pretty expensive. And so he's already put like 30 out in California, man. It's like, yeah. So we're going to go out there and do a test run with Radical Reversal, and we're going to do 2 Valley State and the women's prison across the street. And we'll probably be doing a few of those. We got a thing in Goucher. We're going to perform at the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute. Nice. It's a Smithsonian sponsored event on September the 2nd. So, you know, there's things. Yeah, I'm gonna keep going, busy wise in terms of. So these days I'm trying to be informed by everything around me, and just let it come as it comes. So,
all right, sounds good.
So, yeah, and I think I've seen a couple of things from you too, Jackie. So congratulations on those.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So Cheryl put in the chat. She said, Stanley Kunitz said, "I did not choose this way. This way chose me."
There you go, Cheryl. Spoken like a true mom. Yeah.
and Randall, I'm surprised that you remember the baseball poem.
No, I did. To this day, I remember that poem. I mean, I just do. I don't know why, but I think in some way it encapsulated a moment in time for us all at Cave Canem. You know, it'll never be another that time, and so like I think as we age, you know, So for context, for those of you like, what the hell are they talking about?
Yes. So context was that I met Randall at the Cave Canem Writers Retreat back in 2008.
Yeah.
And they were and that the retreat was held on the campus of the university in Pittsburgh, in one of the suburb campuses. And one evening, several of the fellows lined up on the field in the dark to play like a softball game or something.
Yeah, that was a thing.
And I wasn't playing the game. I was just happened to be going from one place to another, and I'm watching them on the field, and they're doing all kinds of stuff, and I could hear them talking. And my poem, because at Cave Canem's retreat, you have to write a poem a day to be turned in before 9:30 in the morning.
Right.
So that you could go over it in your workshop that day. And I wrote the poem about the game that they were having. And one of the first anthologies that Cave Canem did, they put the poem into the anthology because Cornelius Eady said, after I read the poem in the workshop, because he was the instructor that day, he was like, that's Cave Canem.
Yeah, it was.
That's it.
Captured the whole essence of what at that time what that street symbolized.
And it was a moment in time, especially if you knew all the characters that were playing.
Right. If you knew all the characters, they've gone on to do like all kind of
and
things.
They've gone on to do some fantastic things. But,
there you go. So
Dwayne Betts was there as
right.
he was talking, and Dante Michaud and Randall and
it was a
Frank
few of us. Curtis Chris. I want to say
Curtis
Chrysler.
This game going on.
Was it Francine, Nicole, maybe?
Yeah,
a lot of
Nicole
people.
Seeley. There were a lot of people who have gone on to do to produce poetry books, produce recordings,
really
to do really great work that in the field of poetry.
Yeah.
Now they're pretty much all of them are running different organizations and whatnot.
And so when people are studying their poem, years from now, they were like, "It's talking about what? Who? Them?" So they'd be like, "Oh, we got to look at this poem, right? All the major players are right here." But anyway, so but getting back to the idea of like poetry finding me, it totally did. But I didn't know. And I think, once they found me, it didn't let go. So, or I wouldn't let it go, put it like that. But sometimes I think you can look around and try to find your purpose, and your purpose is really close by. You're just not paying attention. And,
right.
If I'm really honest with myself, I go back over the things in my life. Sometimes poetry probably was like 1 or 2 steps removed from me, and I never really, sought the opportunity. I decided to do something else, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but it's funny though, man. It's like, because you try everything, you try to change their life, and it was poetry, right? Who knew? You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah. I mean, for me, that was my rehabilitation, therapeutic way of getting through the system, but also imagining something totally different from what I had been doing. And and that's why I appreciate the poem, because I think for me it's the building blocks of language. Even when I write prose, I'm still in poetry. I'm like, poetry is like right there, tagging along. It ain't gonna go too far. It ain't going nowhere really. And so everything I do, I'm thinking about, the poetic voice.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt.
Did anybody else have a question? Cheryl put something in the chat.
Okay, in your writing, you look inward and outward at this all at the same time. Then you hit us with flowers and colors, love. Is that the right? Yeah. Yeah, I'm always interested in interest ways and exit ways to the poem. A lot of times especially in live performance, I probably don't read those the same way twice. So, I'm always thinking about, I'm always thinking, especially when performance, I'm always thinking about ways in which I can you know, take my words and like, you know, do a few things with them, but the narrative still is the same. And so that's for me, it's always about line integrity and how does one, in a relationship between one line to the next. I call it ghost enjambment, you know. It's like a food though. You know, it's like you think we stopping, no, we ain't stopping, we going. But then you gotta remember what's up here, down here, so we're gonna I mean, I'm serious. I'm serious in a lot of ways, you know. So I want you to have that singular one experience with the line, while simultaneously thinking about what came before it, and then what comes after it, and then each line sort of operates autonomous, but as part of the whole machine of the poem, the whole mechanization of. I don't know if mechanization is the right word. The mechanics of the poem, rather. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's you know, that's what I'm thinking. You know, us poets, man, we think we're doing a lot of things. We might not be doing nothing. That's what we do.
No, we may think we're doing a lot of things, and in most cases, it's not what we think.
Right. Yeah.
But it's what the person who heard you read thinks. Right. It's what you know, it's what the reader thinks. Ultimately. And as a writer, you never know what you have written is going to resonate with somebody.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, seriously, you just don't know, because I've done readings when I first started out writing, you know, and doing open mics and whatever, to have people come up to me 2 years later and go, oh, my one woman, I think her grandmother had died, and she was very close to the grandmother, and I have a poem. And she repeated that line out of that poem verbatim.
So that's the power and the magic of poetry, though, straight up. And you know, you don't know. Like you don't know. Somebody hit you with something like, oh, you was there, you listened, you heard that. And that's what it's really all about. Forget everything else. I mean, you know, I think Sterling Plump told me this. It's like, you know, it's like what makes a great poet? What makes a good poet or whatever? It's like, you know, and it's not the book, the words, it's like who's listening to you?
Right.
Who's listening to you? You know what I mean? Who's listening to you? And that's it. And so, and that's why I kind of started there, you know, like who's listening to you, and how do I, you know, be representative of that experience while also battling all of these other forces that's out here trying to wipe away that experience. Because I'm very aware of like the constructions I'm fighting about in the poem, I'm wrestling with the academy. I'm trying to uplift the community. I'm saying, F you, academy. I know I can do you like you want me to do you, but I don't care about you. You know what I mean? All of that is, I'm serious. I'm thinking about that. And so, you know, I always bring one of them. I'm in like the Mecca mode. Like, you know, I look at that as her swan song to aesthetics. She shows everyone that she can do it better than you. I can do you better than you, but I don't want to do it. You know what I mean? But I know I do. Trust me. And that's what she did with that book. And if you look at it, the construction of it as it goes through, it's a masterclass in Western poetics. It is. Totally.
Yeah.
Then she just like dropped the mic and went somewhere else. Like, that's why, you know, anyway, so yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. Abby, you had something? Let me see what you said. Oh, okay. Abby, you can speak, talk.
Okay.
Oh yeah, we can hear you, Abby.
I can hear you. Okay.
Okay, you can hear me?
Yes, yes, yes.
Oh, I was just writing about, hold on, maybe I can get back to the chat. Because poetry for me always, I mean, thank you for your poems today. Yes. I'm always, when I'm listening to poets, I'm always taken back by the imagery in the words that really captures, as, I mean, with poetry being a distillation of language for the most part, you know, that you're using some powerful images. I was really caught up with the image of the man, the indecisive man standing outside the church. I think it was decided.
Well, it was, I said a cathedral, but I was really, it was a liquor store.
Oh, a liquor. Okay, we're not knowing whether to go up or down or in and out.
It's a liquor store on the bottom that have
AA on the top. Oh no. Now there's a contradiction.
Right where, if you ever been to DC, right where Busboys and Poets is, one block up is what I'm talking about.
Uh-huh.
Totally. I mean, I knew that. I knew before, way before all that was there. So it was like, yeah, on the corner of 14th, and I think was it yeah. And it was a liquor store. So, you know, they were in and out, but then on the top, every hour, people would come in and they would have the AA meeting, like on the top. So you got I don't know the percentages of the relapses, I don't know. But I'm just saying, if you really want to, you know, that. But hey, man, you know, they were pretty popular though. People came from all over and were at those meetings, and I was just like, that was the most insane thing I would ever see. I was like, that's crazy.
Well, it really captured to me, you know.
I'm sorry, but anyway.
That moment in time, you know, yeah. And I suggested in my chat, I know you like Gwendolyn Brooks very much, and I suggested
check that out.
A particular poem that was dedicated to my late husband, called Boy Breaking Glass.
Okay.
And I don't know if you ever read it, but it's in the Mecca collection.
Right.
It's called Boy Breaking Glass.
I got it. I have to look at. I probably have, and just not even thinking about it. But okay, I will definitely thank you. Thank you, Abby. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, we are reaching our 6 o'clock time. So one, I want to thank Randall so much for joining us and reading for us. It was truly a treat. There are not too many poets that can, like I said, you write about the tough subjects, you're not holding anybody's hand, but there's a light to it. Mm-hmm. Even in the dark part, there's some, you manage to keep it. There's some element of joy in it, even though it's maybe a more realistic version of what, you know, telling of what is actually happening. There's still that you can still feel that in that life there's some kind of joy going on.
Right. Yeah.
No matter how hard it is, even with your Ladies of the Evening poem.
Wow. Oh, they all have
that sense of joy, you know. And in a lot of ways, your work does sort of remind me of Lucille Clifton in a more gritty way, because she wrote about those difficult things, but there was joy in all of those lives. Exactly. There was joy in her sister's life, even though the sister was a lady of the evening living with her John. You know what I mean? Lucille didn't pull any punches about anything, you know.
No,
she did not pull any punches.
First day I met her, she was,
you know, I mean, I understand the use of metaphor and poetry and all of that, but there's sometimes you have to be able to read the poem and look and go, oh, that's somebody. That's not a metaphor. That's actually somebody. You know, and I did have that experience with her. The one time I actually got to meet her, I got to ask her about one of her poems that the instructor told me was, oh, that's just a metaphor for whatever. And I'm looking at this woman going, really? And so I asked Miss Lucille about that poem.
You know,
and she told it like it was.
She was always, you know, like somebody's mama to me, like when I first met her too.
Right. She was really wonderful.
Yeah, she was cool. I remember my first poem at Covey Conham, and then her and Patricia, and they were looking at my stuff. I was like, you know, I just wrote this last night, right? But then it was cool because she had been doing some work in prison. It was actually about prison. It wouldn't appear until like my third book, but I remember the poem, and I've talked about a facility in Maryland. And so here I am, and this is the thing. What's good about, sometimes you're not even aware of like the connection that you have with each other in terms of poetry, or whatever that life brings. And I think for me, I just assumed that she might not even known that world. And she was like, I go to Jessup like all the time and teach workshops, and like, so it was like, oh. So it was a very interesting conversation in terms of like, she understood what was going on in the poem. He understood what I was trying to get at. And I was like, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
There you go.
One of them be still and be quiet moments. So, but yes, we want to thank you, Randall, for this afternoon. It was really a fabulous reading, and really, really appreciate you and your work. Mm-hmm. And wishing you much success on Radical Reversal and the project and the group.
Yeah.
And I hope that you can continue doing what you're doing, because you are actually a beacon of light into a system that goes back and forth, that can travel between the now and what's happening in that other world that you ended up participating in. And that's not something that a lot of writers can do, which is to be that beacon of light going into something that has a tendency to suck the light out of everything.
Right. Yeah, we're going into the belly of the beast, man. We're gonna and just create. It's a very interesting experience. Like just when we go in there, and we've been having people transferring from other facilities to try to get into like that program.
Wow.
It's and then when they get in there, it's just a whole different, like, it's just so much collaboration, so much just energy, and so much creativity. It's interesting to me, like how these students can sort of like come from these other places of existence within this facility, locked down and then they get in there and they got so much they got so much they want to do, so much they want to learn, so much they want to like give to other people, and it becomes that. And so that's what people always tell me what the value of arts is. I'm like, that's what art does right there.
That's true.
So it does, man. So
that's true.
But thank you. I appreciate you always, for first for inviting me, and then the friendship over the years, and things we've done, the places we've been a few places, done a few things too. We ain't gonna talk about them though.
No, we ain't gonna talk about them. Anyway,
it's all good.
I want to thank everybody that came on this afternoon, and please join. Our season is going to end actually in July this year. We are going to have another live event at the Brooklyn Conservatory of Music, and it's going to be We Be String.